Hello, Warhammer YouTubers. So, I finished up another hobby project, which is great. It's lovely to be back into painting a little bit here. And I've been able so far, even with a busy work week and a little bit of video games kind of tossed in there, to still get some stuff done, which is definitely my plan. Um, I come home late from work. I usually work pretty late hours, and just a couple hours at night, I can get a little painting done, a little bit during the day, and I think I can kind of hone in on it. But I certainly don't want to do too much more or a larger project than what I've currently been doing here. Trying to keep it a little more manageable. So this week's project was to paint a Tau Fire Warrior squad, and this ended up being quite challenging as I was really repainting models, and that entails some additional challenges. I opted to not strip them down. I just don't like that process. It's just kind of annoying. But there's definitely pros and cons to both. And my Tau army, such as it is one of the first armies I painted for 40K. And I did a lot of work on them in the early 2000s when Tau first came out. But honestly, I've never really liked the look of the models, and I plan to repaint them for many years. They just weren't, even if I were to push forward. In general, I would say don't repaint models. And I certainly have no intention of repainting these at some point in the future. But I just thought, even if I wanted to use that existing paint scheme, which I don't think was very good, it didn't bring out a lot of detail, you'd still need to do a lot of work because there were no highlights at all. They're not even edge highlighting, nothing, right? It's just pure base colors, and back in the day, just like an old ink. And so it's just very, very plain. I opted for things that are just extremely dark. So the original paint scheme is just way too dark, right? And I had white helmets that were originally painted over blue helmets. So there's a lot of problems in general with the models. Now, I've always liked the white and red color scheme of the Vior'la Sept. And Vior'la is known in the hobby lore as being this very hot-blooded Tau Sept. And so the rules for them are very much aggressive, right? They treat rapid-fire weapons as being assault weapons, and they don't get the penalty for assault weapons, I don't think. So they're very much more of a movement-focused, very short-ranged, aggressive Tau, which is not generally how they often get played. At least not when I used to play them. But I do like that, and my Tau army was always very aggressive. I was a purely mechanized army, so not only do I like the colors, but it feels right to officially name them this, officially recognized Sept. Generally speaking, as a collector, I prefer to really go for established looks and established lore. And back when I made these guys, there was no such thing. You could paint them kind of like the orange ochre Tau Sept colors, but there were no rules associated with different Septs. So that was like the only thing going for you, other than maybe Farsight. But it's just I really wanted to do some more work on these and bring them up. So to transition from the old color scheme to something much, much lighter, I really began by airbrushing the prominent areas of the models in white. And I've taken several different photos here. Basically, every time I sat down and painted, I took a new photo, so you can kind of see the transition from the current scheme or the old scheme of blues and blacks up to the white and black scheme. It was a challenge. Painting with white can be a little troublesome. I wasn't as worried about that. I think for me, it's just the fact that there's maybe too many layers of paint. And there was a point where I was pretty desperate's really overstating it, but I was really concerned that this video would just be about like a hobby failure, right? And I was still going to do the video, but I would be talking about, man, this did not work. That it just seems so messy, and a lot of the details there on the models I think could be better if it was a brand new kit. But all in all, I'm pretty happy with it, and which is nice to say. It's nice to turn that around, and I think there always is like that panic moment when you're painting models, and maybe you haven't done quite as many layers of paint necessary, right? Like they always recommend, Warhammer TV, 2 or 3 light coats, right? So if you just paint that one coat, and it's like, man, you can still see the underlying colors, and it's all blotchy, and it looks just gross and ugly. I was totally there, and I was like, this won't work, and wasn't sure quite what I was going to do. But I think I managed. It's still not 100% perfect when you really get into the fine details and you really look closely, but it's passable, and I think overall it is an improvement. I really started to do a lot of layers with Lamia medium added in, hopefully get a little bit more of a smoother transition, even if it is a lot of layers of paint, smooth some of those things out, and hopefully it looks pretty good. And I'm looking forward to maybe working on some larger battle suits or something for that. So something that I thought was going to be a huge challenge, I think ended up okay, and I would be very happy to see most of my army painted in that way, and so hopefully that's something I can definitely work towards. Whenever I get probably a new Tau project, be going back and painting it up. And if it's another Fire Wars squad, it would probably be a very short video. There's no point rehashing the same issues, but the Tau have such a strong emotional connection to me as one of my first true 40k armies that I used to play a lot. I really want that army to look well and be pretty cool in the battlefield, and I think I've achieved that. So that's good. For 1 week, I'm happy. So on to the next projects, and I do these things randomly. And there's pros and cons to that. My previous randomizational chart involved like a dozen dice rolls of D6s and D8s and D20s, and it went right down to the minute faction within the sub-faction. I've done away with that. I've modified this greatly. It's 2 D20 rolls, very simple, and it allows me some flexibility. So what I've basically rolled for is the specialist games and board games. So that could include like Hero Quest models, and Warcry, Necromunda, whatever. And I happened to actually roll both last week and this week for the same thing. So what I'm going to paint this week coming up is the Iron Golems for Warcry. We've been playing a lot of Warcry, and that sounds like a lot of fun to get those painted up. There's only 8 models, but I'll be painting them from scratch, so I'm looking forward to that. It's also Christmas coming up here, so I should have plenty of time. When you work at a university, you get a good full 2 weeks off, pretty much. So that's good. And then for the second roll, I could do Untamed Beasts, but I kind of want to, as much as possible, I really want to switch things up. Like, even if I got Tau again, I'd want to do another battle suit rather than another Fire Wars squad. So just doing things just a little differently. I'm actually going to, I think my plan is to paint up my human Blood Bowl team. Now, I've never played Blood Bowl yet, but there are models that need to be painted, and that's what I'm probably going to do. So Iron Golems this week, the following week, human Blood Bowl. And that's where I am. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good one. Bye.